If you've been following some of the major gaming outlets for a while, you may have noticed that Xbox seems to attract more criticism than other gaming platforms. There's even a term for that, the Xbox tax, and you can find plenty of videos and articles discussing it. And I'm not talking about channels that are focused on console wars, because in those places you should expect that kind of bias. But even some outlets that claim to be neutral or that offer a more general coverage of the gaming industry still behave essentially in the same way. Therefore, Xbox must have some serious issues to justify this extra criticism and lack of enthusiasm. As someone who's gone through every generation of that console, in this video I'll tell you why you should root for Xbox to fail. Looking back at the first Xbox, it was a way for Microsoft to get into the home console business, but as we all know, competition is a terrible thing. The fewer choices we have, the better. Who needs variety when we could just stick to one option and keep things simple? The Dreamcast was Sega's final console, and we would finally have one less competitor on the market. But then Microsoft had to ruin that by launching the Xbox, adding yet another option to complicate things. As if just existing wasn't enough, Xbox had the nerve to bring in some innovations to home consoles, such as a built-in hard drive, a direct slap in the face to memory card manufacturers out there, since it allowed us to save the progress without the need of an extra accessory. On top of that, it introduced the ability to download additional content for certain games, which just disrupted the natural order of buying complete products. But it didn't stop there. The OG Xbox also had a focus on connectivity, paving the way for Xbox Live. And I'll have to state the obvious again, but innovation is not good for us. Progress only complicates things. To top it all off, in another display of arrogance, Xbox had the audacity to show us that first-person shooters could work well on controllers with Halo, and as if that wasn't enough, they introduced Forza, a legitimate competitor to Gran Turismo. But it was in the following generation that Microsoft truly tested the limits of our patience and goodwill with their best-selling console, the Xbox 360. And their audacity was apparent right from the very beginning. The 360 was the first 7th-gen console to launch, and to make matters worse, it was priced lower than the PlayStation 3. And as we all know, next-gen consoles are supposed to be expensive. But that's just the beginning. The Xbox 360 evolved the Xbox Live with features that no one asked for, like gamer profiles, voice messages, and achievements. And let's not forget Xbox Live Arcade, which gave indie developers and smaller games a platform, as if we didn't already have enough options with the big studios. The 360 also expanded its exclusives, with franchises like Gears of War and Forza Horizon, as well as new installments of Halo, Forza Motorsport, and Fable. But who really needs new franchises when we already had Mario, GTA, God of War, and Sonic? And with the success of the Wii, both Microsoft and Sony had to come up with something to get a piece of that market. And Xbox did it in the worst possible way, by giving us more freedom. The Kinect could track our movements without the need for a controller. And as if things couldn't get worse, up to 4 people could play at once, without requiring extra accessories for each player, taking away from us that satisfying moment of unintentionally throwing the controller on the TV while you were moving. Now, the Xbox One deserves all the praise for losing that console generation right from the reveal conference. But Microsoft still had some unnecessary innovations, and during this generation they started shifting their focus to services. The first mistake here was the backward compatibility. After all, who needs old games when you can just focus on the present and the future? The PlayStation 4 showed us that you can move forward without worrying about previous generations. Or, there's an even better option. If you want to play some old game, you just have to wait for a remake or a remaster and buy it again. As Jim Ryan once said, why would anybody play these ancient games? But where Microsoft really crossed the line was with the introduction of Game Pass, a subscription service that would allow you to play hundreds of games from different generations for a small monthly fee. And I know what you must be thinking, this is outrageous, because games should be expensive and ideally we should be paying full price for each one. And then there's the issue of variety. Game Pass overwhelmed us with so many options that it became a burden. Who has the time or patience to choose between hundreds of games? Life would be much simpler if there were just one game to play. At last, we arrive at the current gen, and as we should expect, Xbox couldn't resist doing things differently. This time, they didn't just release one console but 2, with the Series S offering a more affordable option. And again, I'm almost lost for words. Everyone knows next-gen consoles are supposed to be expensive, otherwise you're not getting your money's worth. And as if that weren't bad enough, Game Pass has made accessing new games even easier, while xCloud lets you play without even having a console. But of course, Microsoft wasn't satisfied with just that. They had to take it further with simultaneous releases on both Xbox and PC, and they even rolled out a Game Pass subscription exclusively for PC players. It's as if they want everyone to play, regardless of their platform of choice. And then came the final blow. Microsoft's move towards the end of exclusives, releasing its games on PlayStation 5 and Switch. Now, let's take a moment to process this. You won't have to buy another console just to play a game made by a different company. It doesn't make any sense. And that is how Microsoft and Xbox are getting away with their goal to destroy everything we like on video games, with unnecessary innovations, more affordable pricing, and games available on different platforms. It's a nightmare that doesn't seem to be going away. Okay, let's be real now. No one here is naive enough to think that these big companies, whether it's Microsoft, Sony, or any other, are purely driven by a desire to make customers feel like the most important thing in the world. Of course they care about profits and stock prices, it's their business. They don't innovate or lower prices out of kindness. To be clear, there are valid reasons to criticize Xbox and Microsoft, but at times the situation isn't as bad as certain channels make it seem, especially those that claim to be neutral. It's a shame that the pay-to-play online model has not only thrived but even made its way into PlayStation, and Xbox did make some major strategic mistakes, particularly in the latter half of the Xbox 360 era and the disastrous launch of the Xbox One. They've also allowed some of their biggest franchises to fade away and lose relevance. Most recently, we've seen the terrible state in which Redfall was launched, as well as several studios being shut down or underutilized, and overall, the way that Xbox as a brand communicates with its audience is far away from the ideal. And as great as the end of exclusives might sound for those on different platforms, it's only going to reduce the appeal of buying an Xbox console even more. What bothers me about this whole situation though is how some people genuinely believe that fewer options in the market would somehow be better. The idea that Sony dominating the industry without real competition would improve things just doesn't make sense to me. When Sony lacks competition, we get things like the absurd launch price of the PlayStation 3 and more recently the $700 digital PlayStation 5 Pro. Meanwhile, Nintendo plays by its own rules and continues to make great games, but they almost never lower prices and treat emulation as though it's a crime against humanity. Even Sony's current obsession with remakes and remasters serves as an example of how comfortable they've become. They don't feel the need to take risks with new single-player IPs. Obviously, everyone is free to prefer whichever console they like, but the reality is that the more options we have, the better. When these companies are forced to compete, we get better solutions and more affordable prices. And it might already be too late. The Xbox Series could very well be the last true Xbox console, with Microsoft shifting its focus to becoming primarily a publisher. They still need a Game Pass machine on the market though, so while they're likely to release a next-gen console, by then the Xbox brand may feel like little more than an afterthought. In the end, what this really shows is how important it is for us to be critical of what's being said by major outlets or big-time influencers. These companies or influencers often get free review copies and even consoles, so their opinions don't always have our best interests at heart. What benefits them may not necessarily align with what we, the casual players, truly need. And the reality is, less competition won't benefit us at all. Well, I hope you stuck around long enough to watch the entire video before unsubscribing based on the title or thumbnail alone. If you're new here and enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to the channel and also drop a like and leave a comment. Thanks for watching, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.